on Monday, there was a House of Commons vote on whether or not Canada would be ready to lift the remaining COVID restrictions. So many other places around the world have already done away with them, and they've sort of learned to live with COVID, and everybody's moved on. In Canada, not so much. The Liberals and the NDP joined together to vote against this motion. So it was defeated by a count of 117 to 202. So there was just one Liberal MP and one independent MP along with the Conservatives that voted for it. So I wonder what's your take on this? Why is Canada dragging its heels when it comes to just moving on and learning to live with COVID?
I don't know if I can answer the why, except for to spite people, to spite the unvaccinated. I mean, that seems to be the big thing that Justin Trudeau wants to do. But let me tell you, it is literally just Canada. When I flew to Zurich to cover the World Economic Forum conference last week, the second people got off the plane, you could tell who the Europeans were because they all like ripped off their masks because they can walk around maskless in airports. And on the way back, same thing. You know, everyone's walking around, no vaccine passport in Switzerland, no masks, none of that. You go through the airport, you're mask free. And then the second you get on the Air Canada plane, because they're regulated by the government, you've got to put your mask on. And at one point, I was sort of reminded that I was coming home when I saw a flight attendant wake up a guy who was sleeping because his mask had like slipped, you know, half a millimeter below his nose or something like that. So it is insane. It's completely theatrical. If you look at Justin Trudeau and his cabinet ministers, they're selectively wearing masks depending on which meeting they're in and which thing they're in. And it's like, it's you could tell that they don't believe it anymore. They aren't buying into it, but we all have to. And the vaccine mandate for internal travel is insane. There's a big legal challenge afoot right now against this. And I don't think they want to give an inch. I think the convoy embarrassed Justin Trudeau significantly. And I don't think he wants to relent on anything that the people in that convoy wanted. And maybe I'm drawing too many conclusions there, but I think spite towards this people that Justin Trudeau holds in contempt, which he feels are the only people asking for changes, is really what's motivating this. Although the opposition is growing. I mean, just this week, the WestJet CEO is on a plane in Europe, and he tweeted out how kind of almost giddily that, oh yeah, mask free in Europe. And he didn't, take aim at the government, but you could tell implicitly he was saying, what is it that is different in Europe? What is it that the science says here that it doesn't say in Canada, or vice versa? And WestJet's CEO also came out this week and said, we've got to get rid of the mandates. They're killing tourism. Now, my view is that they're just wrong. I think the tourism implications of that may be a point of evidence in favor of dropping them, but I think they're long gone. If there was ever justification for them, there isn't now.
Well, a couple of things. I think you're totally right about spite, because we saw this non-binding motion put forth by the Conservatives. It got voted down, and then the next day Trudeau announced that they were extending their restrictions, which, again, it's punitive, right? It's telling people who are vaccinated that they can't, people who are not vaccinated that they can't come to Canada. People who are unvaccinated, they can't leave Canada. So it's punitive in nature. Anecdotally as well, I've flown around a little bit, and I noticed that every flight I get on, the pilot comes on and sort of reluctantly apologizes and says, we know this policy is still in place. We're sorry. It's not up to us. We're following Canadian federal regulations. And you could just tell that everyone is sick of it. One other story, I was flying from Ottawa to Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago. And as soon as we went over U.S. airspace, the pilot announced that you could take your mask off. And, the pilot was excited to announce this, like, don't worry, you don't have to wear it anymore. I instantly took my mask off, and then I looked around, Andrew, and nobody else did, because I realized it was all bureaucrats on the plane, either American or Canadian. So
going from one capital to another. That's a good, I feel bad. I'm glad you survived that flight, to be honest. And I don't even think the pilot was right, but you better believe I wouldn't be complaining, because flights I've been on, they've kind of claimed, Transport Canada jurisdiction over the entire flight, even if only a bit of it's in Canada. And I think this is the thing, but these measures everywhere else I find are decreasing in compliance. Like if you go around, even in some medical clinics right now in Ontario, masks are required, but people generally aren't wearing them. The airline industry, the aviation sector, is like the one thing that the federal government can control. They can't control your neighborhood corner store. They can't control the grocery store. They can't control all of these other spaces, but they can control air and rail travel. And I think there is something to, I just want to make these people suffer, and I want to make these people hurt.